Sure, one of the most common questions we all get on Facebook, our websites, blogs, whatever, is what's your favorite assistance exercises? And this could be hours and hours of talk. So let's limit it. Let's just say one exercise, one sentence. Let's go for the squat first.
Can I say something to start? Yes. Not necessarily a certain assistance movement, but for any lift, find something that you absolutely suck at and kill it and make it stronger. Don't go to something that you love doing, you're always strong at, you hit PRs all the time, and just keep pounding that because you're obviously good at it. Find something that you're not very good at all with each lift and make it stronger, and then find another one that make it stronger, and your main lift will go up.
Yeah. All right, so we each get one sentence or one exercise and an explanation. So for the bench first, Jim.
Oh boy. I love any kind of rowing motion, and I really focus on getting my scapula to come back and retract as opposed to just kind of pulling it with the bicep. That was something I did for a long time, as I wasn't pulling through my elbow. So like one arm rows, love those.
Same with the bench.
Yeah.
I'm going to go back with the military press. For a long time, I was doing strongman training. My bench was climbing like crazy. I got away from it when I was doing the strict West Side method. Bench came down, and I'm speaking raw, and the bench came down, and as soon as I put the military back into it, bench started climbing. It's good for shoulder strength, shoulder stability, shoulder rotation. That's my favorite.
Bench? Oh wow. I'm a really good bencher.
Go to the expert.
Yeah. Bamboo bar. Bamboo bar really kills me, so that's something I need to get better at. So I'll go with that one.
I really like band pull aparts in my bench groove, and I try to emulate the bottom of the bench where you try to get tighter as you go down, and you create like a spring. So once you let go, it's like it jumps off. So I mean, I try to pull it, and then I try to pull a little bit more and hold it there so I can get that tightness. Emulate the bottom of it.
You do that standing or on the bench?
Stand.
Yeah, and at the bottom, he's really good about, you push to the, it's just like on a good bench press, you push to the bar. You don't let the bar meet you, you meet the bar. So like, you pull it down where it's comfortable and then push to it and then come back that even further. And it opens up your rib cage, it rotates your scapula, everything. It's really good.
I really like chest supported row because to Corey's point, I like to pull that. Like I feel like I'm right through the reverse of my bench groove. Yeah. You go heavy.
That doesn't beat your low back up.
For me, it's all about pause bench. I do long pauses, 3, 5, 7 count pauses, singles, multiple reps, whatever. But just because as a raw lifter, bring it down to the chest, hold it there for a long time, and then push it off. You get better at your off the chest strength, and that'll carry over through the rest of the movement.
Well, I was going to say some type of rowing, but everyone else said that. I just started benching about 2 weeks ago after not a year of benching, but I guess to kind of go along with Brandon's point, as far as pressing and overhead work, I did notice that after taking, probably about 9 months or so, where I was doing a lot of limp lifting, a lot of jerks and push presses, things like that, a lot of fast overhead movements, that I went back to benching about 2 weeks ago. And I haven't lost anything off my bench. I feel faster, I feel stronger off my chest. I have not went for a max yet, so I don't know if it's better, but it definitely feels like I'm faster and it feels like I'm better. So I mean, that overhead work, you can do, a lot of people do speed bench already, but maybe adding some faster overhead lifts in can work for some people if you have the mobility to do it well.
All right, squat.
I like carries. I like doing anything that teaches me how to keep my core rigid. That's really helped me a ton, and I like squatting with different types of bars for reps.
Yeah, I think, I wouldn't have said carries off the first bat, but I would have said a variety of bars, but the power pole was something that I used with Chuck.
I wish I had one.
And it was tremendous in core stability, lower back erectness, and, it just emulated the squat really well. So, like he said, carries or a variety of bars.
Really considered assistance movement, but the one thing that's the hardest for me is we used a camber bar with purple bands hanging with 100 pounds of chain on the purple bands. So it was jumping and the chains were swinging. And they were talking about core stability. That's the hardest core movement I've ever done in my life. I was sore. We didn't use a belt either.
Yeah, then we pulled our grease down, so we took away the extra support that we usually do have that we could push out on, so we had zero support, all of us. My favorite would be the arch back in the morning with the safety squat bar. And I really concentrate just pushing my butt back and using all hamstrings and back to support it. And I mean, I've naturally got a weak back. I've herniated a few discs and stuff, and this has been really crucial, getting me back to heavy weights.
For me, it's dead squat, far and away, Anderson squats, I guess some people call them. But you're setting the pins about ½ inch above parallel and squatting, bottoms up from there. Because there's really only two places that a raw squatter is ever going to miss. They miss out of the hole, or they start falling forward. So I try and kill two birds with one stone on that. These safety squat bar to do dead squats. That was actually out of just necessity because I couldn't get in position under the bar with a regular bar. So safety squat bar was the only option, but then it also builds upper back strength and really forces you to push your head back.
Yeah, I like that one a lot too, and I'll rotate pin squats with pause squats, and so pause bench, pause squats. You see a pattern, I like pause lifts, but squat down on the bottom, just pause for 3, 5, 7 count, and come back up with it.
So you like to squat to death?
You're crazy.
You're crazy. It's crazy.
I always have to go last. I think the squat is probably the best assistance exercise for the squat. A lot of squats, front squats, dead squats, back squats, box squats. Just do a lot of squats. I think probably the number one thing that is overlooked that I see people in here mess up a lot, and that goes from the soccer mom that trains in here out to the guys that want to be powerlifters, to the high school kids or whatever. The breathing, with your diaphragm. I think a lot of people, especially, they get a heavy weight on their back and they want to go, and then they will have this big arch. But then for a lot of people, they don't have the flexibility, so then they go into this big anterior tilt in their hips. And one of two things happen. One, their hips tuck under, and they talk about how their back hurts when they squat. Or two, their hips don't tuck under, but they're in such a big anterior tilt that then their knees start wanting to cave in. They have no control. So, really learning how to get yourself into a neutral hip at the top, breathe down with your diaphragm and really brace, and then sit back into the squat. And then other than that, you just do a hell of a lot of squats, and then you'll squat more, I think.
Yeah, works. Definitely. Keep it simple.
Deadlifts, Ryan Brown.
Well, I like Olympic lifts to make your deadlifts go up a little bit. I mean, you have to be able to. I think if you want your deadlift to go up while you're doing a lot of Olympic lifting, you need to go back and forth. Maybe a few weeks of focusing on higher intensity lifting with the Olympic lifts, meaning heavier, and then go a couple of weeks of focusing on lifting heavier with the deadlift and keeping the intensity high in the Olympic lifts, because you have to train at a high intensity to kind of keep moving it, but find ways to manipulate those intensities by pulling from more difficult positions. Sometimes I'll do it with barefoot, pull from the high hang, just stopping, halting, different ways to where it can be the heaviest thing you can lift, but it's not quite as heavy on you to where that you can really save up that, the gas tank, save up gas in the gas tank for the actual deadlift. That type of speed work I feel like works really well.
I'm going to stick to my pattern here and pause deadlifts. I like to keep training specific, and for the deadlift it's a little bit more nuanced though. For somebody that has trouble, say they have trouble from the knees up, I'll have them pause right below the knee. But really, just about anybody can get a lot out of pausing just off the floor. Like I'll have people break it off the floor just a little bit and hold there for a few counts and then pull it the rest of the way. That's a hard lift.
I'm glad I don't train with you.
Your head just explodes. But pausing at the bottom like that, if you're weak off the floor, it'll help build that weakness. But in addition to that, it teaches you a really good start position, because you're holding it in that position. You're going to find the position that you're strongest. You're going to pack your shoulder blades down. You're going to get in a nice tight position in the bottom.
Do you use that as an accessory movement, or how much, would that be a heavier weight or a moderate? What would you do with that?
I'll go pretty heavy on them. I'll have people do, 2 or 3 reps usually. And it depends on the count too. Like if you're doing a 5 count pause,
Right.
you probably don't want to do more than maybe 2 reps. That's a long time to be under tension on a pull like that. But
Do you ever use like an isometric pull against pins?
I haven't, but that doesn't mean it wouldn't be a good idea.
That's two things.
I haven't got to it.
Chuck was big on, not to jump on you guys,
Yeah, go
but
ahead.
Chuck was huge with 3 plates. We would pull just below the knee, and then it was like a violent explosion. You know, as hard as you could go, as if you had the bar loaded with 700-800 pounds. You were to pull like that, and he would want you to almost fall backwards. You know, but it was a 1-2 boom. And we would do sets of 8 to 10 that way. And then pulling against the pins, you know, we would pull, you know, 500-600 pounds, sometimes that heavy, but not always, but usually about 500 pounds. And it would be wherever our sticking point was, and then it would hit you. And like you said, you'd be straining. You could feel your body finding its strong point to stay in that strong position. You know, and then eventually the more you do them, you find that strong point as you're pulling, rather than your ass being back here and then it coming under where you're strong. You start pulling with your tail tucked underneath you a little better.
Yeah, I think to that point, as far as, you know, people don't give their body enough credit for like how smart it is. You know, it's going to find the best way to do it, and you know, you just give it enough chances. So like doing stuff like that will definitely help. You know, I use the isometric pulls against the pins usually just the last 3 weeks before I meet. I'll do three sets of 6-second pull with the pin. 3 sets with the pins about maybe 3 inches off the ground, or where the bar gets 3 inches off the ground, and then 3 sets where it's about 3 inches away from lockout. But if you're going to use isometrics, you just got to keep them there, like super taxing the central nervous system. So that's something that can only be used. You know, I'll use it 3 weeks out of a 12-week training cycle, but that's really only getting used, you know, maybe 3 weeks out of every 18 weeks or 24 weeks of training. So you got to be careful with those. But probably best assistance for me, either deficit pulls. Don't let the deficit get too high, you know, where you're standing on blocks that put you in a different position, and you know, you got to get in the position that you're strongest at. And I like bent over rows a lot.
I really like 3-inch block pulls with no belt for reps. Like I'll do sets of 5 to 8 just to really pack on some muscle on my lower back, take my legs out of it.
Well, my favorite would be 20 rep squats, old school, high rep Olympic squats. Definitely put more on my day than anything I've ever done. But as far as the actual assistance movement, glute ham raise, if it's done right, I see a lot of people that can use a purple band or green band. And if you can use really any tension at all on the glute ham raise, you're not doing it right. You've got the pad set up and you're doing back raise. If you get the pad down at your knee and you're really curling up with your hamstring,
So more of a natural glute ham raise.
yeah. If you set a glute ham raise up to be more like a natural glute ham raise, if you can do 10 solid reps with body weight, you're a pretty strong guy.
Yeah. Well, that's proven by have somebody put their knees on the ground, hold their ankles, and tell them to curl up.
Yeah.
They can't do it. So, like you said, a lot of times people cheat their glute hams. I think that's an excellent. I mean, it's just the best hamstring movement you can do, period, if done right. Mm-hmm. But for deadlift, for me, I really started paying attention to block pulls and deficit pulls. I rotate them on my wave, a 1-inch deficit, a 2-inch block, and a 4-inch block. And they all have certain indicators for my lift from the ground. And I can get within a 5 to 10 pound estimate of what I'll pull at the meet based on those numbers. And they help me develop strength in certain areas, certain starting positions that put me out of position. And that was one of the things that Chuck Vogelpohl was really big on with us, was making the lift harder than it had to be, starting out of position, figuring out how to get back in position, because inevitably in every meet, you know what happens, you squat down, your knees may track forward, but you can still save it if you've learned that position, you know. So I think it's better to play harder or to practice harder than you're going to play. And you know, that can be achieved with the blocks, that can be achieved without a position training.
I think, you know, for me and for a lot of people, one of the biggest things people struggle with is learning how to load the bar. And I think working with like 60 to 80% and just pulling single after single after single after single, and just learning how to get that pressure in your core and loading the bar and learning how to pull yourself through the floor, so to speak. I think that's something that people, I know it's something I struggled with for a long time, and Chuck Vogelpool was nice enough to pull me aside. And I literally put 200 pounds on my deadlift in 6 months just by learning how to pull myself into the floor, because no one had ever really showed me how to bend the bar before. And I think that's something people just struggle with. They don't know how to get full. They don't know how to create that tension and that torque. And I think if you do multiple singles over and over and over again, just learning how to load that bar, I think that'll help a ton of people out.
Yeah, and on that note, one of the things that we had to do with Chuck was, if we were doing a triple, it was not up, bang,
Right,
bang.
reset.
It was up, down, one breath down,
Right.
go. Down, one breath down, go. And that way you essentially did 3 singles, but it was like a triple.
Right.
And you did it by your third one, you're short-winded, because you never get a full breath on your third one. And, those type of things make it harder than it has to be. So 60% actually feels like 80, 85%.
Sure.
And 80% feels more like 90, 95%.
You learn how to strain
Exactly.
safely.
Like a touch and go deadlift, anybody's stronger with reps than touch and go deadlifts.
Right.
Yeah.
Anybody. But I really started picking my deadlift up a ton when I started setting stuff down,
Yep.
resetting, and doing everything just like a single, every single time.
Yep.
Just pounding form constantly. You learn how to keep the bar close, how to keep tension on the bar, because you can't cheat. You're restarting every time.
Right.